One. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Mazza on Mets, where we talk all things New York Mets. I am your host, Evan Mazza, and we got a lot to dive into, got a lot to dig into, lots to talk about with the Mets as they got swept by the Atlanta Braves. They are now in the middle of a six-game losing streak, and hey, the Mets have finally hit their first rough patch, their first rough stretch of the season, their first case of adversity of the season. They've been kind of cruising all year long. Have flaws. Again, I've said before, this is a good baseball team, but I didn't think they were a great baseball team because they had noticeable flaws. But they were able to win through these first 2.5 months of the year. They were able to play well through these first 2.5 months of the year, and have just a week ago they were 21 games over 500. But it's baseball. It's 162. You were bound for these stretches like this. And for the Mets, this is their stretch. They've now lost six in a row. They have just gotten swept by the Atlanta Braves, where, again, this was a series where they were outplayed, outmanaged, didn't hit in run scoring position again. The starting pitching didn't really perform well. Their bullpen didn't perform well. Defense was a bit spotty again. So this was a series where, just like Tampa, where they were very, and usually how it goes when you're swept, but you're outplayed and just you didn't look good. And that's what the Mets did. The Mets did not play well and did not perform well during this series, a key division series with the Braves as they enter another big division series this weekend. And of course, we'll preview and get into the Philly series for today and over the weekend. With the first place in the National League East now on the line, the two teams enter the series this weekend tied in Philadelphia. But back to the Braves series. Again, it started off on Tuesday night. It started off on Tuesday night where, just like the first game against Tampa, they're cruising. They got off to a lead. They're up 4-1. Peterson's pitching terrifically, and then in the eighth inning, just like that Friday night game, took one inning and small mistakes here and there, things started to spiral. So it was on Friday against Tampa. It was you're up 5-1, and then Clay Holmes gets taken out. Paul Blackburn goes in instead of Oscar Brazoban, who was already warming up. But Blackburn goes in. He struggles, and Kranick again has to come in. He struggles, and before you know it, 5-1 is 7-5 Tampa Bay. They end up losing the game, and that's also because they go 2 for 16 runs in scoring position, and they lose that game. Last night, or Tuesday night, excuse me, Pearson's cruising. They're up 4-1. Juan Soto kicks off the game with a solo homer, and you're thinking, okay, hey, we're off to a good start here, off to a good series start, good game start, because coming off the sweep, hey, the Mets are looking for a bit of a bounce back, right? And it starts off with your superstar right fielder hitting a big home run. Spencer Schwellenbach's like, okay, we're off to a good start here, off to a quick start. This is what the Mets needed for this series and for this game on Tuesday night. But in the eighth inning, maybe Carlos Mendoza kind of rolled the dice just a little bit. Obviously, Pearson was coming off the shutout performance against the Washington Nationals, where he was great, but this isn't, of course, this isn't the Nationals. This is the Atlanta Braves. Regardless of their record, this is the Atlanta Braves, and it's in Atlanta, and it's this lineup: 4-1 Mets, top of the eighth. Carlos Mendoza decides to send Peterson back out there for the eighth, and a move that I agreed with. I agreed with, sending Pearson out for the eighth inning. I thought that was a good idea. I thought that was a good decision. But I think he should have had Reed Garrett ready to go just in case. He could have said, "Oh, you know what, Peterson, you pitched 7 innings. You've been great. We're up 4-1. Let's get Reed Garrett in there in the eighth, and he can hand the ball off to Diaz in the ninth." But Pearson was at 80 pitches. He was cruising. You had the nine guy coming up. Hey, all he has to do is get the nine guy out, and all of a sudden you got one out with Acuna coming up. And hey, if hey, let's see if he can manage his way through the eighth inning after he gets the nine guy out. Nick Allen. But what Mendoza should have done is, and again, I think you see, hey, Mendoza is still a second year manager. He's still a second year manager. He should have had Reed Garrett warming up in the bullpen, but in the eighth inning, but he didn't. And Peterson ends up walking the nine guy, and that's on Peterson. You can't walk the nine hitter. It's like the biggest thing when you're a pitcher. Well, one of the biggest things. You just don't walk. You just can't walk the nine hitter. You cannot walk the nine hitter, and he did. Walks Nick Allen. Here comes Acuna. Reed Garrett starts pretty much quick warming up in the bullpen. Base hit to Acuna, And then Mendoza has to take him out. Well, as Reed Garrett is just quickly warming up with the bullpen, trying to get himself ready to go. Trying to get himself ready. So he's rushing through it. Then Mendoza has to put him in. He gives up a hit single to Verdugo. Bases loaded, nobody out. And Garrett almost gets out of it. He gets the next guy out, gets the next guy out. All of a sudden, it's 2 outs. Marcell Ozuna's at the plate, 2 strikes, 2 outs. All you have to do is make one more pitch, and you send this thing to the ninth. Just one more pitch, one more strike. And that's where miscommunication starts. Here comes the third one. The first was the mismatch by Mendoza. Second was Pearson walking the nine guy, but here's the third one. The third small mistake that cost the Mets this game. Garrett and Francisco Alvarez miscommunicate. They're not sure what pitch to throw. Garrett wants to throw the fastball. Alvarez then changes it to throw the splitter. Garrett throws the splitter. Ozuna hits the line drive base hit. He has the base hit down the left field line, scores all 3 runs. Game is now tied. It's the combination of a couple of small mistakes and a couple of small things that cost the Mets this game. Mismanagement by Mendoza, not having Reed Garrett ready to go earlier than he should have in the 8th inning, right off the gate, just in case if Pearson didn't get the 9 guy out. That way he would have been ready to face Ronald Acuna. Peterson walking the 9 guy, which he ends up, like I said, which he walks the 9 guy. He walks Nick Allen, which can't happen. David Pearson walks the 9 hitter. And then Reed Garrett and Alvarez can't communicate what pitch to throw. Ozuna gets the base hit. It's a tie game. We go to the top of the 9th. Soto leads off with a single, and then here comes base running error number 2. Before there was a base running error early in the game, Jeff McNeil hits a line out. Pete Alonso on first. Alonso doesn't see it. He's off first. He gets thrown out of first, double play. Soto leads off the 9th with a single. Pete hits a fly ball deep to right. You think maybe he could hit the wall, but Acuna makes a great catch. Soto's halfway to second. He doesn't know if the ball hit the wall or not. He thought the ball maybe hit the wall. The umpire makes the call a little bit late for Soto's liking. Umpire makes the call a little bit late. Soto doesn't know that it hit the wall. Acuna actually caught it. Soto gets caught in a double play. The inning is essentially over. Bottom of the 10th, top of the 10th. Let's go to the top of the 10th because Diaz comes in the bottom of the 9th and does well. Top of the 10th comes along. Acuna is at second. He strands on second. Why? Because the Mets' bottom 3 of the order can't even advance into third. They struggle. They can't score because, again, the bottom of the third of the order is struggling for this team with Alvarez and Mauricio. And, Tyrone Taylor has been overall fine, but again, he's not a big bopper at the plate. He's, again, more of a fourth outfielder defender. But Alvarez struggles. Mauricio struggles at the plate. Go to the bottom of the 10th. Braves get bases loaded. Tyrone Taylor, again, praises defense. Tyrone Taylor makes a great play, looking like Willie Mays out there. Makes runs and hustles, makes a great play, and makes a throw to home. But again, the winning run scores for the Braves on the Austin Riley sac fly RBI, and the Braves win a game where the Mets lose a game that they should have won, just like on Friday against Tampa Bay. You lose a game that you should have won just by what. All it took was 1 inning. 5-1 on Friday against Tampa, 1 inning. 7-5 at Tampa Bay. 4-1 against Atlanta, 8th inning, 2 outs, 2 strikes. Just like that. All it takes is 1 inning. And it's just a small amount of errors that just happen, and it spirals into what we saw. So, and that game, it's a shame because that game, that game could have set the tone for the Mets. That's the thing. That game could have set the tone for the Mets in this series, and maybe would have put their confidence up for the rest of the series, even with Chris Sale's performance on Wednesday night. But you end up losing a game you should have won. And it sets the tone for the whole series. Wednesday night, you get shut out. Chris Sale was Chris Sale. They barely get anybody on base. They get shut out. Sale almost pitches a complete game shutout because they took him out with 2 outs in the ninth because he was well over 100 pitches. But you get shut out on Tuesday night, essentially, Wednesday night. And then last night, you get up 1-0 early, but you still, on a Ronnie Mauricio RBI single, but again, you still got the sense that Atlanta's going to come back and win this game. And Clay Holmes, he struggles a bit, just like Paul Blackburn struggled on Wednesday night. He struggled last night. Clay Holmes, 6 walks overall, 9 walks by mid pitching last night. Just can't happen. Just you cannot walk 9 guys overall. And Clay Holmes, you can't walk 6 guys and 4 and 2/3 innings. Just can't happen. So you combine all of this stuff, the starting pitching struggling, the bullpen struggling, the offense again not scoring runs, and the defense being spotty once again, and you get what you get. You get a 6 game losing streak, you get another sweep, and you get your division rivals sweeping you, as you now head to Philadelphia for another key big division matchup with both teams tied for the division right now. Like I said, the Mets have now hit a rough patch. The Mets have now had a rough patch with Manaea and Frankie Montas still hurt, and they're coming back with Kodai Senga hurt, and he's going to be out a few weeks. With Mark Vientos still hurt, he's on. With Mark Vientos still on his way. Tyler McGill recently got placed on the injured list. Combine all that, plus AJ Minter and Danny Young, their injuries. The middle of the relief pitching needs some help. Plus your offense struggling to score runs. They went 1 for 6 on Tuesday night. The Mets offense went 1 for 6 on Tuesday night with runners in scoring position. Like I said, on Wednesday night, they didn't get any chances because they didn't get anybody on base because Sale was that good. Last night in the 7-1 game, they went 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Started off the game 1 for 6. In the first three innings of last night's game, the Mets offense was already 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position. They were already 1 for 6 within the first 3 innings. You know, you're only up 1-0. You got to get more runs, and they weren't able to throughout the first 3 innings of this game when they had a chance. They had chances to get more runs to add on and maybe keep yourself in it, but didn't happen. And with the pitching now hitting this flux that they're in, and the bullpen, not being as dominant, or at least in the middle innings now, getting a bit of a question mark. They brought it up yesterday. Gary Cohen and Keith Hernandez brought it up yesterday on SNY. It's time for the Mets offense to step up and get going. It's time for the Mets offense to step up and get going, and start to kind of carry the load, because the pitching has mostly carried the load to this point. Well, now the pitching has hit their rough patch, and this team has hit this rough patch, and now it's time for this offense to kind of carry it. The problem is they're one of the worst teams in baseball at driving around scoring position. They're one of the worst teams in all of baseball driving around scoring position, and you knew that this would come back, that we would get to this kind of point at some point in the season, that we would kind of get here. That at some point the Mets offense would have to carry them. So with them being on a 6 game losing streak and the pitching struggling and kind of being in flux right now, and tonight they continue this flux. Justin Hagen was supposed to start tonight, or at least supposed to pitch in a bullpen game, but he had to pitch yesterday out of the bullpen. So now Blake Tidwell is being called up to pitch tonight against the Philadelphia Phillies against Zach Wheeler. We'll talk about this game and that series later, but their game tonight and the series later at the very later in the show. But it opens up again. Now your offense has to kind of carry you. Now you're asking Lindor. He's got a broken pinky toe, I understand, but now you're asking Lindor. Now you're asking Nimmo. Now you're asking Soto. Now you're asking Alonso. Now you're asking Marte. Now you're asking McNeil. Hey guys, time to step up. Time to drive. Pete's done his job. He's driven in runs and runs scoring position, of course. He's been great at runs scoring position this year, but it's the other guys. Lindor, Nimmo, Soto, McNeil, Marte, they got to start driving in runs. They got to start driving in runs in scoring position now. They got to start stepping up. They got to start doing it now, because the pitching has now hit a bit of a flux, and now it's time for the Mets offense to get going now. It's time for them to get going. That's probably the only way to stop this skid that they're on right now, because it's not getting easier tonight. Zach Wheeler's pitching for the Phillies tonight. It ain't getting any easier. Tomorrow night, the Phillies throw in their rookie pitcher, who they like a lot. The next day, on Sunday, they throw in Jesus Luzardo. So things are not getting any easier for the Mets. Oh, and then they get the Braves again next week in Citi Field. It ain't getting any easier for the Mets. So it's time for the Mets offense to really get going. It's time for the Mets offense to really get going and start to kind of carry this team a bit. This series was bad, probably worse than the Rays series over the weekend. And it's kind of a common thing you see, right, from these series. First game, blew the lead late. Second game, kind of non-competitive. Not all the way, but kind of non-competitive. Third game, completely non-competitive. Even though they were up in for a bit in last night's game, but it ended up being completely non-competitive. 9-0 Sunday against the Rays, 7-1 yesterday against the Braves. It's kind of the same. It's the same series essentially, but I would say this series they played worse because it was against a division rival. You know, but they've now hit this stretch. They've now hit this patch now where their offense is now going to step up for them. Their pitching's in a flux. Their bullpen's having trouble with the middle innings. You know, you gotta start now relying on your offense just a little bit now. Now your offense needs some help. Now your offense needs to step up and help just a little bit, just a little bit. Go to back to the pitching. The Mets have allowed 5 or more runs each of the last 6 games. They've lost all 6. They have a record of 1-16 when allowing 5 or more runs since May 1st, and that tells you everything right there. Tells you everything right there. Tells you everything right there where this team's strength has been. It's been the pitching. So it's time for the offense. An offense with guys like Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Starling Marte, Mark Vientos when he comes back, Jeff McNeil, even Francisco Alvarez, and we'll talk more about Alvarez next. So even Tyrone Taylor and even young guys like Mauricio and Beatty and Acuna. This is a lineup and a bunch of offensive guys that Torrens should be better than what they've shown, especially with runners in scoring position. But you got young guys like Mauricio, Vientos, Beatty, Alvarez, and Acuna who have all struggled. Or Acuna started off great in the first month, but won Rookie of the Month in April, but he struggled since then. Some of these guys have to really step up, especially Vientos when he comes back, and Alvarez needs to step up. He really needs to step up, and that leads back to Alvarez. There was a report that came out earlier today, or not really a report, but just an observation. Scouts and analysts talked about Alvarez and what comes next, and Keith Law commented on it. Another scout comments on it. Todd Zeal comments on it. We'll get to Keith Law for a second. Keith Law said about Francisco Alvarez, and I quote, "When you look at some of the numbers, he's hitting the ball as hard as he ever has." I would say that's true. He's just not doing it consistently. Yep. Pitchers are attacking him on the outer third of the plate, and he's having trouble laying off them. He's going to have to make the adjustment. He's still young, especially when you factor in those 2 injuries to his hands. But it's also a fact that some guys never make the adjustment in terms of pitch recognition at the big league level, so that remains to be seen. Also, sometimes it just takes longer for young catchers because of their defensive responsibilities. Certainly the case nowadays with catchers. Like catchers nowadays, this isn't the days of Mike Piazza, Pudge Rodriguez. If you want to go far back as Gary Carter, Johnny Bench, Roy Campanella, Elston Howard. But even just years ago, like Posada, like I said, Piazza, Pudge Rodriguez, Posada, even as recent as Buster Posey, where you looked at the catcher position like, yeah, slugger, hit the ball, and hit the ball far. We're now in an era of catchers where, defense comes first, and that's what they're kind of taught now. Alvarez 2 years ago when he hit those 23 home runs was kind of a throwback. Kyle Riley, what he's doing now in Seattle is kind of a throwback, you know. So, so yeah, I see what Keith Law is saying there. To continue, this is from a scout. He says, quote, "He's not squaring up pitches as he should hammer. He should hammer, and he's chasing pitches he should take." That's true. He looks completely lost. I like the way he plays the game. So in one sense, I hate to say it, but I think he's in his own head so much that the Mets need to try something drastic and send him down to the minors, give him a chance to figure some things out away from the spotlight. Another scout, chasing power, he says, quote, "Chasing power could be the root of his problems. It looks like it sometimes, but at some point you also have to ask if he just has a hard time recognizing spin, and that leads to chasing and looking bad. Even going back to his rookie year, pitchers stopped challenging him as much with the fastball in the second half, and he struggled. The numbers back that up. In the second half of 2023, Alvarez hit just a .174 with a .343 slugging percentage and only 8 home runs. That after slugging .514 with 17 homers, .514 with 17 homers in the first half. He really hasn't looked like that guy since the first half of his rookie year, but I also wouldn't discount the injuries being a factor in his development. He needs more time before anyone could judge him with any real certainty." This next one's from Todd Zeal. I think, quote, "I think he wants so badly to be that guy that everybody says he was, and that's made it hard for him. I think the expectations of being such a huge power hitting prospect have ended up hurting him. It's hard to say exactly why the power hasn't been there, but at some point he began searching for the power, rather than just trying to hit the ball hard and let it come organically." I think each and every one of them, from Todd Zeal to Keith Law to those two scouts, I think each and every single one of them have very fair points. He's trying too hard from what I see, he's trying too hard to hit home runs. You see a lot of uppercut swings. He's trying way too hard to hit home runs. I do think he's getting a little too opposite field heavy. He's trying, I think, a little too much. I think this comes from Eric Chavez and Barnes. You see him a lot trying to go to the opposite way. Well, that really wasn't a strength 2 years ago. It was, he did hit home runs the opposite field, but he was more of a pole hitter, left center gap, hit it out to left field kind of guy, hit it out to left field kind of guy, or even to left field kind of guy. But you see him now trying to go more of the opposite field. And that's been Chavez's way of trying to make him be more of a complete hitter. But I also think it takes away his strengths a bit. But having said that, you see him, I think, trying to hit too much for power. He's trying to uppercut swing. He's chasing it a lot of pitches he's chasing, and yeah, you see a lot of the frustration. You see him banging his helmet with the bat, or he's swinging the bat. I think he actually once cracked his helmet just a few games ago. But I think it's a combination of a lot of things. It's just, I think he's an incredibly talented player. He's still very young. He's only 23. If he needs a trip to the minors, and I think the Mets have to do it. But here's the thing. He's still the best, most talented catcher they have. Luis Torrens is not, I love Luis Torrens. I do. He's not a starting caliber catcher. And by the way, you saw that the other night. He struggled last night, both defensively and at the plate. At the plate, Torrens has really struggled as of late. But Luis Torrens he's not a starting caliber catcher. He is what he is. He's a backup depth catcher. And that's perfectly fine. That is perfectly his role. And he's pretty good at his role. He's not a starting everyday catcher. And no, not even Hayden Senger is. So here's the thing. The Mets are kind of stuck. They're stuck with Francisco Alvarez. You just have to hope Alvarez snaps out of it. So does that require him getting sent down to the minors? Maybe. And you just tell Torrens, hey, dude, just be the starter for a bit, and you can go back to your original role when Alvarez comes back for the minors. You just hope that happens soon, but if you send Alvarez down to the minors, but we'll see. If it comes to that, I can understand it. Maybe Alvarez needs to go back to AAA, clear his head a bit. Look, the Mets have done that before. They did it once with Michael Conforto back in 2016. So, but but I can understand if they want to. But again, the thing is, he's the best, most talented catcher they have. So, do you want to send him down and you roll with Torrens and Senger and take that chance, or do you just say, Alvarez, you got to figure this out, and we'll help you figure it out as much as we can. So, but I think each and every single one of them have points. I think each and every single one of them are right. I think a couple of them, tell you exactly what's going on with Alvarez. I think they're all right. I think, but he is young. He's still only 23. I wouldn't, go trade for a catcher. I mean, there's no other catcher really to get. Let's be honest. I guess there's Hunter Goodman if you want to trade away some top prospects to the Rockies. I don't know, but I mean, I don't even know if the Rockies are going to trade Hunter Goodman, but but you kind of have to hope Alvarez, gets back going again, because he's the best guy you have on that catcher roster. He's the best guy you have. So, speaking of trades and what the Mets could do, got to talk about this recent report by Will Salmon and Ken Rosenthal of the Athletic. Mets are searching for center field help and bullpen help, and even a frontline starter. No surprise there. According to Athletics, Ken Rosenthal, Will Salmon, the club is looking for reinforcements in both center field and the bullpen. Furthermore, they added that there's some speculation of larger, pricier targets emerging down the line. They wrote, quote, the Mets are monitoring the market for help in center field and the bullpen, league sources said. Speculatively, other possible and more expensive targets, such as frontline starter, may emerge. Rosenthal and Salmon also know that the Mets are expected to leverage the pitching talent across their farm system. So that's Blade Tidwell, pitches tonight, Jonah Tung, Brandon Sprode, Nolan McLean, much like they did last year in 2024 as a means of bringing in the necessary players for a postseason push. Look for the Mets to again leverage the pitching-rich farm system. After trading multiple minor league pitchers last year, the Mets possess enough attractive arms in their farm system to supplement their roster without dealing their top pitching prospects. Rival Alvarez, familiar with the organization, said. Yeah, look, the Mets said, look, this is their needs right now. This is their needs right now. They need a starting everyday center fielder. Taylor has been fine. You can't complain with Taylor what he's done, but he's not an everyday center fielder. He's a fourth outfielder. He's a fourth outfielder. They need an everyday center fielder. So could be Jaron Duran, who I love. Could be Cedric Mullins, who I love. But they need an everyday center fielder. They do. And just in general, they just need another bat. They need another bat. Just in general, they need another bat in that lineup. They just do. They just do. At least somebody. I mean, again, I don't know if it's going to fix their old runners and scoring position situation, but they just do. They need another bat, and they need another. They need a couple bullpen arms. The AJ Minter injury. Boy, the AJ Minter injury. Oof, that really stung them. You knew that from the beginning when he got hurt and he was out for the season. You know, you know that really stung them. That really did. That took away a big piece in that bullpen. So they need another arm in that pen. And Kranick has really struggled as of late. Brazoban is being used a lot. They're throwing in guys like Garza, who has actually pitched really well. I'm kind of surprised Garza isn't sticking around in the Mets bullpen. They send him back down. They keep sending him in back down to the minors. Um, they bring in Justin Hageman, Brandon Waddell. They clearly need another arm or two in that bullpen. They clearly do. So hopefully that happens sooner rather than later. You know, they need to get another bullpen arm. They need another bullpen arm or two in that pen. The most interesting part of that to me was frontline starter. Let's read that. Let's read that again. Let's read that part again because this I thought was very interesting. More expensive targets. The other possible and more expensive targets such as frontline starter. Other possible and more expensive targets such as frontline starter may emerge. Are we about to play Simple Man again? Are we about to hit that Leonard Skinner and play Simple Man again? Because Jacob deGrom certainly fits the bill of frontline starter who is also pretty expensive. And the Texas Rangers, look at their situation. They're a few games under 500. They're 7 games back of the division. They're only 2.5 back of the third wild card spot, but they're behind several teams. And yeah, the Mets need another starting pitcher. They do. They probably need one. If Clay Holmes, they are, and Carlos Mendoza talked about yesterday, they are monitoring Clay Holmes' pitch counts and his innings just now because again, season's getting going again. As the season continues, he's making that transition from bullpen to starter. You've had Griffin Canning struggle the last 3 of the 4 starts. Manaea's coming back. Senga's hurt. Montas has been out. He's coming back. McGill is now hurt. They could use another front line. They could use another starting pitcher right now. Jacob deGrom fits that bill. I don't know what it would take to get Jacob deGrom back. I don't know what it would take to get Jacob deGrom back. You know, but Jacob deGrom certainly fits that bill of starting pitcher, frontline starter. That's expensive. You know, could be someone like Sandy Alcantara, could be someone else, but yeah, they could need another starter. They really could. They could use another starting pitcher. So again, that's just me that's just me wondering, and there's no reports about deGrom or anything like that. That's just me throwing it out there. But reading that, makes you think. But reading that part of that report by Salmon and Ken Rosenthal makes you think. It makes you think. In other news, Mark Vientos and Sean Manaea are on rehab assignments today in AAA Syracuse. Sean Manaea is pitching today for AAA Syracuse. Mark Vientos, he continues his rehab assignment. So as they are on their way back, Frankie Montas is expected to join the Mets after a very, very rough minor league rehab assignments. His last one started off well. I mean, it did. He went 3 innings and first 3 innings was pretty good, but then the next 2 innings didn't go so well for him. So the outing turned from a good one, encouraging one to a bad one. But those first 3 innings were good. Those first 3 innings were good. But I think my biggest thing was, hey, at least for these rehab assignments for these players, I just want them to. For this is just me. I just want them to come out healthy. You know, you know, I just want them to come out healthy. But yeah, you want them to succeed. You want them to pitch well. You want them to do well. You want them to show that they're ready to come to pitch in the major league level. But Montas is going to join the Mets. He's not listed to pitch this weekend against the Phillies, but you got to figure he's going to be pitching next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday against Atlanta, or excuse me, Tuesday, Wednesday in Atlanta against the Braves. But yeah, you got to figure he's pitching there next week against Atlanta. So they're gonna have to wing it. They're gonna have to wing it. He's joined the team, joined the Mets. Uh, He's joined the Mets, and you're just gonna have to wing it. The Mets are just gonna have to wing it and see. Hopefully, he does well because they need him to do well. So we'll see what happens with him. But Manaea and Vientos are doing rehab assignments tonight for the New York Mets. See what for AAA Syracuse. So as they're on their way back. Um, and that brings us to tonight and over the weekend. Biggest series of the season to this point, certainly. Division, the Mets and the Phillies are now tied for the division. 3-game series in Philadelphia this weekend. We have a lineup. We have a lineup for the Mets beginning tonight as Blade Tidwell pitches for the team tonight, 7:15 p.m. start on Apple TV Plus. Leading off, playing shortstop, Francisco Lindor. Batting second, playing left field, Brandon Nimmo. Batting third, playing right field, Juan Soto. Batting fourth, playing first base, Pete Alonso. Batting fifth at second base, Jeff McNeil. Batting sixth and DHing. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't get the infatuation. I know it's against the right-hander. I know it's a right-handed hitter, a right-handed pitcher. I know Mendoza wants to play the matchup, but righty lefty. But I think at this point we've seen enough of Jared Young. I don't know, guys. I think Jared Young is not good. Jared Young is just not good at baseball. He's just not very good. I know the Mets need another lefty at DH. Jesse Winker is still working another guy that's hurt that they need back. Jesse Winker, he's working his way back. But but I think at this point you should just play Starling Marte. Just hit Marte every day against righties and lefties. He's hitting. Marte's hitting at least. I don't care if it's against a righty or a lefty. Marte is hitting the baseball. He's hitting the baseball. Jared Young doesn't hit the baseball. He doesn't. He swings and misses and strikes out. So anyhow, Jared Young is batting sixth and DHing for some reason. Catching Luis Torrens, batting seventh, batting eighth at third base. The return of Brett Beatty. Brett Beatty is back at third base today. As he comes back from an injury, he was day to day with an injury. And if you remember, just a month ago or 2 months ago, Brett Beatty hit a home run off Zach Wheeler. So that's probably another reason why he's in the lineup tonight because he hit a homer off Zach Wheeler. And batting ninth and playing center field is, of course, Tyrone Taylor. And pitching is, of course, Blade Tidwell. That's the Mets starting lineup for tonight as they play Zach Wheeler and the Philadelphia Phillies. That's tonight. Tomorrow, Saturday, tonight's game is on Apple TV. Tomorrow, game is on Fox at 7:15. Griffin Canning will go on the mound as he tries to bounce back. He has really struggled in 3 of his last 4 outings. He's really struggled with the walks. Again, ironically, the one good start was against the Los Angeles Dodgers. But he pitches against the Philadelphia Phillies. He'll be against the Phillies young rookie McGable. He's 2-0 with a 2.21 ERA. He's pitched pretty well. Sunday, Jesus Luzardo goes for the Phillies, and David Peterson goes for the Mets, 7 o'clock ESPN. So, look, this is the biggest series at this point for the Mets, and couldn't come maybe at a worse time because they're on a 6-game losing streak. Couldn't come at a worse time. They're on a 6-game losing streak. Pitching's in flux. Offense isn't hitting. Defense is a mess. Mendoza's made some questionable decisions. Bullpen's been a bit spotty in the middle innings. And the Phillies are red hot. The Phillies are playing very good baseball just 2 weeks. Again, this is why baseball is a 162-game sport. This is why baseball is the ebbs and flows. This is why, it's every team goes through good and bad stretches. Just 2 weeks ago, a week ago, the Mets, just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, the Mets were hot, on a roll, and the Phillies were struggling. If you watch Phillies post game, you will know after some of their losses. If you watch the Philadelphia Phillies post-game shows, you will know. But a week or two ago, the Mets were hot. They were playing great. They were 21 games over 500, and the Phillies were really reeling and struggling. Well, fast forward a week or two later, the Phillies are red hot. They're playing great baseball. They bounce back. Schwarber's hitting balls out of the ballpark, and the Mets are struggling and reeling and have lost six in a row. Again, baseball 162 ebbs and flows of a season. This is what happens. You know, this is what happens. And the Mets have officially hit their first stretch of the year. How do they bounce back? How do they get out of it? Will they get out of it? Can they get out of it? I think they can, but but it begins with a win. You need to, baseball is 162, so it all begins with stacking up wins. Okay, how do you do that? Well, you got to get one win. Well, then you got to get two wins. Then you got three, four, five, whatever. But it all starts with one win. It all starts with one win. And for the Mets, boy, it'd be really big for tonight, but it's going to be a tough task. Rookie pitcher pitching tonight in Philadelphia in that barn box, you know, against one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. So it's going to be a tall task tonight. But again, this is where I have to look at the offense and say, guys, you know, where are you? Where are you guys? Time to wake up. Time to wake up. Time to score runs. Time to drive in some runs. Hey, Juan Soto. Time to time to carry this team a bit. Hey, Pete, you got to get back going again. Hey, Lindor, I know you're struggling. You got a broken pinky toe, but time for you to stop chasing at fastballs up there. Time to get back going again. Hey, Brandon, time to get going. Hey, Jeff, time to get going. Hey, Marte, time to put you in the lineup every day and get going. Hey, when Vientos comes back, time to get going, dude. Hey, Alvarez, time to snap out of it and get going. It's time for this offense to step up now. Pitching's in flux. Pitching needs it. You know, time for you guys to step up, offense. It's time for you guys to step up, and they need to. So, and I think that's the key. I think the key for the Mets this whole series is not the pitching. The key for the Mets this series is hitting the baseball and driving in runs. That is the key. That is the key in this whole series. Key in this whole series is to hit the baseball, drive in runs, and score runs. That is the whole key for the Mets this series. If they don't do that, well, this will be another long series. Might even be another sweep. And you're looking at it, and then you look at a 9-game losing streak coming back home to play the Braves again. So it's time for the Mets offense to wake up and do something, man. So it's time for the Mets offense to wake up and score some runs and get better run scoring position. And if they can't, well, then changes have to be made. And that starts at the hitting coaching level. Barnes and Chavez, hey, it's time for you guys to step up as well. It's time for you guys to step up because the offense, you guys, they need you now. Team needs you guys now. Team needs the whole offensive squad. So, so we'll see what happens this weekend because it's a big series, obviously the biggest series of the season. We'll see what happens this weekend. So, big series for the Mets. See how they respond. Let's see how they respond to this stretch, to this patch. Let's see how they respond. Let's see how good they are. Let's see how good they really are. Here's the biggest test of the season. Let's see how good they really are. Let's see how good they really are. From the team, from the players to the manager to the coaches, front office. Let's see how good they really are. They've been really good since June of last year. Overall, they have been very good since June of last year. Well, now they're back to playing like April, May 2024 Mets. We haven't seen this kind of Met team in a while, guys. We really haven't. We haven't seen this Mets team in a while. We haven't seen a Mets team like this since May of 2024 when they were 11 games under 500 and looked like they were going to sell and trade. We haven't seen the team play like this in a good while. So let's see how they respond because they've been so good from June 2024 to this point. So before, let me get the dates. They've been so good from June 2024 to June 12th of 2025 because June 13th was the first game against Tampa. So from June last year to June 12th of this season, they have been so good and have won a lot of baseball games. Well, now they finally hit a rough patch, and now you're back to seeing the team that we saw from April, May, or most of April, May of last year. Let's see how they respond. Let's see how good they really are. And it all starts this weekend against Philly. Like I said, takes all it takes is one win. Just got to win one game and then stack up some wins and get back going on track. Welcome to the ebbs and flows of a season. Welcome to 162. All you can say. Hey, the Yankees lost six in a row, and hey, they got a win last night. So so now let's see if they stack up wins. That's what happens in baseball. You lose five, six, seven in a row, whatever. All it takes is one win, then you can try to stack up some wins and get back on track, get back going again. So we'll see. We'll see how they do this weekend. I will be back and recap the show on Sunday. You know what? We're gonna do something different. We will live stream on YouTube the Mets Phillies game. I will put it on ESPN. I will put it on ESPN. I will set it up, and we will do a YouTube live stream of the Mets Phillies game, and I will do a little commentary overall throughout the whole game. So we'll do that, and then after the game is over, we'll recap the whole series. We'll talk about what's going on, what's looking forward to the upcoming series against the Atlanta Braves. So we'll do that on Sunday night. I'll live stream the game on YouTube. I'll live stream it all. We'll do commentary on Sunday night, talk about the game, how it's going, and live on Sunday night. You know, so we'll talk about that on Sunday night. We'll do that, and then we'll recap the whole series in general, and then we'll preview the series against the Atlanta Braves. So I think we're going to do that. We'll do that, and we'll have some fun along the way. That being said, this has been Mazza on Mets. I've been your host, Evan Mazza. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for tuning in and listening. Thank you very much for watching this episode. Please give it a like and subscribe for the channel. I greatly appreciate it. Have yourselves a great day. Have yourselves a great weekend. We will see you on Sunday night. And let's go Mets.